Hey guys, this is the third and last part to this series. It's kind of like a UI design course about pause menus. If you haven't watched the last two parts, I would highly recommend you go do that now. They're both in the description, and I hope you've enjoyed this series so far because I sure have enjoyed making it. We just left off from a time lapse of me doing these presets. What we're going to do next is implement the graphics tab and an audio tab. Let's go. So these presets were made with the thought process that low is basically as low as you can go while still being playable, and each thing from that is like a 25% upgrade. So you go from low, you see how it's like 8th res, 2, and then medium, it's 4 res, quarter res, or it's 4 pixel light count, quarter res, and it's basically each of these is supposed to be kind of like a 25% step up from the previous. Go to here, you look at ultra to, you see it goes from half res to full res, the shadows get better. Then Super Ultra is basically just everything that I can crank up is cranked up to the max, even though it's probably not necessary. And what I've done here with customs, I've kind of put it in between Super Ultra and Ultra, because this is going to be something like, where you can customize your settings, and so it doesn't really matter how high I put the default as, because it's going to be customizable. However, I just realized we're missing something, and that's a graphic that shows the player which preset he's on. The player right now has no way of knowing whether he's on low or super ultra or custom, etc. So what we're going to do is under the panel where this is all organized, I'm going to add in an image, and I've created this CheckHex sprite, which is one of these hexagons, but with a check oat. And what we're going to do in code is we're going to take all the positions, we're going to create a game object array, assign all these check marks in our pause menu, then just take their positions, and if they click on low, we take the first one, the array, click on medium, the second one in the array, etc., etc. Alright, so now that we've done that, we have to create the code for it.
So now what we'll do in the code is lay the foundation for every method. The low, medium, high, ultra, super ultra, and custom, if I haven't said this already. We're going to make these all individual methods. So low, public void low, and we'll say quality settings, set quality level 0. Now we're actually going to be using the number 0 more than once, so we'll say int quality level equals 0. And we'll actually say, let's set quality level. And now what we also need to do is, in between sessions, save the whatever preset they chose. So we'll say PlayerPrefs.set int player data quality level. And now public game object checkmark, and this checkmark will be used to tell the player which preset they've used. Checkmark.transform.position. Actually want each individual position of all of the other check marks, so we can overlay this one. Game object R equals new game object array, and then make it 6.
Now, future 468R here, I'm here to say that the reason I made it 6 is because that's the amount of presets I have. You should be making this as large as the amount of presets you have, so if you also have 6, go ahead and make it 6. If you have 4, please go ahead and make it 4.
And we'll assign these in the inspector. Position equals game object R dot, actually we'll say quality level dot transform dot position. And then now all we have to do is duplicate this method a few times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Change it from low to mid to high, ultra, super ultra to custom. And now we'll find the number 0, make it 1, skip over the first one. Whoops, that was a mistake. Make it 2, 3, 4, 5, back up here, make it 1. And now we have the function buttons, we just need to assign them in the right places.
So now it's time to code these arrows that we can click on when we're on the custom preset. So let's take this slowly. How do we want to do this? Well, we want these buttons next to the textured low and the anti-sailing off to work. And we also want them to change when we click on low, medium, high, ultra, super ultra, or custom. And we want them to be clickable only when it's on custom. We also want this to save, so when somebody closes and reopens their program, it remembers if they chose a preset and if they chose the custom preset, how they customize their custom preset. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do public void texture up. And now what we're going to say is, if you look at File, Build Settings, Player Settings, Notice that in the quality tab, it goes there's 4 settings for the anti-aliasing and 4 settings for the texture quality. On texture up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if quality settings dot get quality level equals 5, I'll say switch quality settings dot master texture limit. And in here we're going to say default. So 0 is the highest, 0 is full res, 3 is 8th res. We're going to say we want it when we click the right arrow, we want the texture to improve, so we want the value to get less. Quality settings dot master texture limit minus minus, and then once it gets to lowest amount, 0. Case 0. We want it to loop back to 3, and now we can duplicate this, name it texture down, and instead say plus plus. And now in this case here, we want to say if the case is 3, we want to set this to 0. And now this is correctly set up. So what we want to do now is do something similar for the anti-assailing, but you'll see in a second why that is unique. So anti-a up, we'll go if quality settings dot get quality level is 5. Switch quality settings dot anti-aliasing. Now this goes 0, 1, 2, 3 for the full res, half res, quarter res, 8th res. Well, this goes 0, 2, 4, 8. 0 being off, 2 being 2x, 4 being 4x, 8 being 8x. So we're going to have to do this each individual case. 0, this is up, so we're going to want to go quality settings dot anti-aliasing equals 2. Break. Just duplicate this a few times. So 0, 2, 4, 8, 2. We want it to increase to 4. If it's 4, we want it to increase to 8. And if it's 8, we want it to loop back to 0. And now we duplicate this and we just reverse it. So if it's 0, we want it to loop back to 8. If it's 2, we want it to go to 0. If it's 4, we want it to go to 2. If it's 8, we want it to go to 4. And rename it from anti-A up to anti-A down. What we now want to do, since we know it works with the anti-aliasing too, is we want it to update the text. So public void update text, and we're actually going to do this on the low, the medium, the high methods as well. What we want this to do is switch quality settings dot get quality level. So if it's quality level of low, which would be case 0, let's create an array of 2 game objects since, like I said, I'm not doing anything with the 3D resolution. Game object array settings text equals new game object array, and with 2 of them in there. In the pause menu, we'll drag in, since I already know where these are. Now what I can do is I can say case 0 settings text 0 dot get component text dot text equals low, and then break. Let's take care of the anti-assailing as well. So 1 dot get component text dot text equals off. Now go in here, we'll duplicate this, medium, high, ultra, super ultra, custom, low, mid, high, then ultra, since there's only 4 settings for it. And we're actually not going to do the same thing for the custom, so let's just delete that. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I accidentally copied that. Just gonna get these out of here. Alright, make that 2x, make that 4x, make that 8x, make that 8x. And now case 5, what we want is, because it's the custom preset, right? That means that they can change it and such. And so we want to check to see what's in the custom preset and then display what's in the custom preset. So switch quality settings dot master texture limit and make it case 0. Copy what I have here, break, and then 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Whoops, I accidentally put low in here. Ultra, high, mid. Then duplicate this. Remember, anti-aliasing is a little special. Anti-aliasing 0, off, 2, 2x, 4, 4x, 8, 8x. Switch these here, 1, 1, 1, 1. And now we should have something that updates the text properly. Oh, first we got to put it inside the methods before it'll actually do anything. Go ahead, anti-down. Okay. Now it's not going to work when we click on these, but that's not what we're testing right now, so. Off 2x, 4x, 8x, off 2x, 4x, 8x, off. Let's make sure that's correct. Anti-Alaising disabled, and it's off. Great, now let's make sure this works. High, mid. Mid would be quarter res, low would be, yep, that works properly. Now what we also want to do is change depending on the preset that we click. And for that to happen, we have to plug this in into the low and the medium and those presets. So just more copying and pasting. And now it should change. Now, in case you have the check mark on the SuperUltra like I do mine, you're going to want to change these values because this is actually on SuperUltra by default. So I'm going to change this to high by default. And change this to 8x by default. And now what we want finally is to be able to save, right? This is all well and good, but if the player can't save it, then it's just going to be annoying. So what we want is we want on the update text to say PlayerPrefs.setInt. We'll say player data quality settings preset and make it quality settings.get quality level. And then inside the switch here, if it's quality settings 5, we have to save the texture, the anti-Alaising, what values those are, because again, they can be changed to anything you want. So after this, we'll say PlayerPrefs.setInt player data master texture limit quality settings.master texture limit, and then under the anti-Alaising, delete the MTL, make it data AA, and then .anti-Alaising. Now, this is all good that they can save it, right? But it's not going to actually load even though it's saved. So we need to do void start. And we need to say is int quality level equals playerprefs.getInt. And then we'll make it like 4 by default. And say switch quality level case 0. We do low. That way the CheckHex also moves. We don't actually have to do the update settings text because it's in the low for you. And now we just duplicate this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do mid, high, ultra, ultra. No, actually this is going to be super ultra. And then custom. For custom though, we can't do the same thing because on the update settings text, it will revert our texture level and stuff like that. So what we do is we just quality level, delete the update settings text here, and then say quality settings dot master texture limit equals playerprefs dot getInt player data MTL, and we'll make it like 0 by default. Say anti-Alaising player data AA, and then make it 8 by default. Then we do update text, and now we have a setup system that works properly. Let's do some testing. High, ultra, ultra, 8x, 2x, off. So let's set it to low, and then once we play it, what is at low? There we go. And then on custom, let's change a few things. We go to medium, and we go to off, and there we go. Now it works. The audio tab is another universal tab, as most people watching this will want an audio tab in their game, kind of like the graphics settings tab. If you haven't already, just like we did for the past few tabs, make a layout, export a picture of the layout, and then export all the assets that you need. I already did this at this timestamp here, so if you haven't done that yet, pause the video here, or go back to this timestamp if you want a example of what you could do. First thing you should do is watch this tutorial on how to create an audio manager by Brackeys, and he also has you create this sound class, and those two things are going to be vital to this part of the tutorial. Don't do anything else besides the audio manager coding and the sound coding. Pause the video here, go do that. Alright, hopefully you've done that and you're now back from doing that, because that's going to be really necessary to do this tutorial. So you should have this audio manager game object and this sound class in your scripts. After you've done that, if you have any sliders like I do, set their values to 80. And if you have any corresponding text, set their values to 82. The reason is we're going to be using something called Unity's audio mixer system. So in the assets, create a folder, called it audio mixers, and in it create an audio mixer. Now what this does, it's better to just show you. I'm going to keep the name as new audio mixer. So you can see it goes from 20 decibels to negative 80 decibels, and the base point is 0. That means no change to the audio clip. Now, in the audio manager here, when we press play, you'll see that it creates an audio source with an output audio mixer group here. Now, what you can do is you can group multiple audio sources. So let's say an AK gunshot, an M4 gunshot, and a 1911 gunshot. You can group these into the SFX audio mixer group and then increase or decrease the volume of the group, and it will increase or decrease the volume of those 3 specific sound effects without doing anything to the volume of the other sound effects. So just ignore the mixers, the snapshot, and the views. We're going to be working with groups. So as you can see, you have this master group, and the only thing you can do to it is add in a child group. So I'm going to add a child. I'm going to call it Ooga, which stands for out of game audio. And when you right click this, you have a lot more options. You have the duplicate group and children, remove, rename, add sibling. It is just another separate group. And child does something pretty cool. So how this works is that the master affects the volume of all the other groups. Groups affect the volume of everything assigned to its group and any groups that are children of that group. So if I decrease the volume of Ooga, it would also decrease of everything assigned to new group without decreasing the volume of anything assigned to this new group. So for my example, I'm just dealing with 3 sliders, so I'm just going to create 3 groups. But I want to stress that this is not necessarily what you want to do. You'll probably have something like music and like sound effects and then dialogue. And if you want to go even further, you can do something like combat, or peaceful. And now you've created a thing which you have a master volume for the music in total, but someone can also turn up or down the combat and peaceful music separately. However, I'm just going to stick with these 3 for now because I don't want this tutorial to be any longer than it has to be. So how this would work in code, how you would change the volume of this is you would assign this to an audio source, and then under attenuation you would right click the volume and you'd expose volume of Ooga to script. Now you see in the top right of the audio mixer tab, this exposed parameters increases and it says my exposed param volume of Ooga. This is how you can tell what audio group it belongs to, but you can also rename this, and in my case I would make it Ooga. And then now in code I can go in here and I can say audio mixer dot set float Ooga and then the value of the slide. Of course minus 80 since here the max is 100 but here the max is 20. And you can just right click it to unexpose it. So I'm going to start off with just doing the final volume first. But now what we need to do is in the sound class we need to go public audio mixer group, a mixer group, and in the audio manager say s.source.output audio mixer group equals s.a mixer group. And now I'm going to set up my 3 clips. Make sure everything is set to 1 here. I'll have you have a listen to these so you know what they sound like.
Wow!
I'm going to loop these just for demonstration purposes.
Pow, pow. Pow.
Now I'm going to expose all of these volumes too. Now before we do anything more with the audio, if you look at these sliders, just like the buttons and the toggles, they also have an on value changed part as well. By the way, make sure your sliders have a min value of 0 and a max value of 100. This whole number's tick is ticked as well. But you'll see that these have an on value changed, and we can assign a method just like the buttons and the toggles. Now I want to have a method that whenever the slider value changes, the text updates to reflect the value of the slider. So in our pause menu script, do public void final changed. It's going to be specific to the final slider. And we're also going to have an array of all the sliders and the text to make this work. Now I just want to stress here again that I'm only making this 3 because I have 3 sliders. If you have more, like 5 sliders, go ahead and make it 5. Like I know Deeprock has music, dialogue, all those other things. So if you're doing something similar to that, go ahead and make it 5. It's going to be just as easy. Now I'm going to assign these in the inspector. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do something similar to how games make fire rates for their guns. If you actually use this slider, you'll see that if we ran the code without doing a specific statement I'm about to tell you in a second, it would absolutely kill the performance of your game anytime you tried to use a slider. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create 2 floats. And just set this one, can fire 1, to anything below 0. Set this one fire rate to a very small number. Now I'm going to make it 0.017 because that'll basically make this 60 FPS. Now what do I mean by that? What we're basically doing here is we're using the same thing games use to create a fire rate for their guns. And make sure you also add a 1 fire rate there. Now we're going to do an if check. If time.unscaled time, and the reason we use unscaled time is because time is paused when the pause menu is active. It's greater than or equal to can fire equals time.unscaled time plus fire rate 1. And what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that we can only update the text that's corresponding to each slider once every 0.017 seconds, which actually really helps for performance. So now we're going to make a variable, an int current slider. Set it to 0 for now. and then say all text current slider dot text equals all sliders current slider dot value dot to string. And now what we need to actually change the volume of the audio sources is we need to create a audio mixer and then assign it in the inspector. I'm actually just going to move this up here so I don't have to keep scrolling down. And now back in final changed, a mixer dot set float final, because that's what I call the exposed param, then all sliders current slider dot value minus 80. Now unfortunately with this system there is a glitch where this doesn't actually stop the slider from moving, this just stops the text from updating. So the slider's value can be 75 while the text says 78, and then you restart the game and all of a sudden your volume is magically increased by 3, when in reality it just didn't save what it showed it would save. So we need to do an else check. I'm going to create a new variable, public float last slider value. And back in here, we need to put last slider value equals all sliders current slider dot value. And we need to put all sliders current slider dot value equals last slider value. And while this decreased the glitch, I found out that specifically when you drag the slider really fast to the left with the value to 0, it would for some reason save it as like 3 or 2 or 4. So I'm going to do a special else check for 0 specifically. I'm just going to copy what's in here. And of course, I'm going to put this to 0. I'm going to put this to -80. And the reason I don't put this set float value to 0 is because 0 is actually, no change to the volume. -80 means muted. Now, test this out, make sure there's no glitches. That looks like it's working perfectly. Now we just need to duplicate the variables up here 2 different times. Make it can fire 2, fire rate 2, value 2, can fire 3, fire rate 3, value 3. Duplicate this final change 2 times. Change it to Ooga changed. Just highlight everything. Search for the value 1, switch everything to 2, switch current slider from 0 to 1. Change this from final change to ThisLevels changed. Change it to 1, make it 3, and make this 2. Now I just have to assign these in the inspector. But now we also need to change the set float, what's in this set float here. For me, I need to change it in Ooga changed from final to Ooga, and in ThisLevels changed from final to ThisLevels. So I'm going to decrease the final audio volume, and everything decreases as well. That means that works correctly. I'm going to decrease the out-of-game audio. The Wii should decrease. Now we only can hear the pa-pow in the other one, and now we shouldn't be able to hear the pa-pow, which is what's happening. Looks like it's working. If we decrease the volume of the other 2 sliders that aren't the pa-pow, which is tied to ThisLevels volume, all we can hear is the pa-pow. That is exactly how we want it to work. Now, of course, this is all well and good, but doesn't do your player much if they can't save it. So, in our exit system, this is why we created an array. We can just say for each slider item in all sliders, PlayerPrefs dot set float, player data audio is what I'm going to make it, plus item dot name, and then make the value item dot value. Now, this system will only work if you name each of your sliders individual things, which I've already done final, Ooga, and ThisLevels. But now we also need something in the start method which loads it. So I'm going to create a for each loop, slider item in all sliders, item dot value equals PlayerPrefs dot get float player data audio plus item dot name, and I'm going to have it 80 by default. Now remember, we don't have to do anything else because on value changed, since we're changing the value, even if it's through code, it'll run that method which changes the audio. The one downside to this is that the pause menu has to complete this start method and stay active so the sliders can run the code until they have run the code, because only one start method is called at a time. So in the game manager, if you have the pause menu, if you have your pause menu get dot set active false in the start method, which you should have. In fact, let me do that now. Pause menu dot set active false, because you don't want people to be in the pause menu when they start up the game. That makes no sense. So all we need to do is find a way for the pause menu script to run before the game manager script. Otherwise the game manager will shut this off and your audio will stay what it is by default because the pause menu didn't have the time to run their start script. So you can go into edit, project settings, script execution order, click this plus and arrow down here, look for your pause menu. I've already done it, but it's alphabetical order, and then just put it above this default time, because that's when all the scripts run by default, and as long as your game manager script is below this pause menu script, your pause menu will always work correctly. And that's it. We've now created a working pause menu for Milk the Cow. It not only works great on its own, but you can easily add more tabs or add new things in the tabs. I really appreciate the support over the last 3 months, even though I haven't uploaded. Thanks for watching this, guys. I'll catch you in the next video, which is going to be something relating to Milk the Cow. By the way, in case you're wondering why I haven't done anything with that in 3 months, that's because of A, school, and B, I'm actually taking coding courses to improve my skill, because I feel like I've reached the peak of what I can do with Milk the Cow, so I'm just taking courses so I can do more with it. Go ahead, leave the video a like, subscribe, and check out my video game Milk the Cow if you enjoyed the tutorial. I'll see you guys in the next one.